Okay, welcome. This is the first of two programmes from Queen Sport. And in the first programme, our special guests are former Queen student, former elite athlete programme member, current international rower and member of the 2021 Tokyo British Olympic team, Rebecca Edwards. And Rebecca will be joining us from her training camp in Northern Italy. And in the studio with me, Ewan McAteer, a third-year dental student, international gymnast, and a current member of the elite athlete programme at Queen Sport. Now, this is a time of the year when the Queen sporting community normally comes together to celebrate a year of achievement and to hand out Blues Awards for distinguished sporting performance. But what a year it's been. The pitches at the Upper Malone facility have lied empty, the dressing rooms have been quiet, no clatter of studs on the floors, no clash of hockey sticks or hurleys, no highs and lows of winning and losing, no coaches' voices in the ears of teams before and after games. But we're back. Let's start with you, Rebecca. You're in, I think, Varese Lake on a British rowing training camp, getting ready for the 32nd Olympiad. Congratulations on your selection for the Olympic Games team for Great Britain.
Thanks. That sounds so crazy when people say it like that.
Yes, it's amazing. How did you hear about your selection, Rebecca?
So we get. I actually heard a week before it was kind of officially released. We get an email from British Rowing saying that you've been like unofficially sort of selected and nominated. So they put in a nomination to the British Olympic Association. So you have to wait for them to officially select you. So, you know, I kind of knew a week beforehand, but then on the day of the official announcement, you get your letter and your Olympic lycra. So that really makes it, makes it really concrete then.
Wow. And what was the reaction of your family at home?
When I FaceTimed my mum, she was crying.
Wow.
She just, because obviously I'd been at home during the lockdown period, so she'd kind of really seen the work that I put in at home. And obviously, like my parents and my sister, since I started rowing at Queen's, they've been there, and I've always said that the Olympics was my goal. And it's not that they didn't believe that I could do it, but it's so far out of reach until you actually, until you get the T-shirt with the rings or your letter that says you've been officially selected for the Olympic Games. It doesn't feel real until that point.
Wow. And right now you're in the middle of serious preparations. You've trained already, I think, twice today so far, and it's mid-afternoon. Tell us what you've done today.
So I did 18k on the water in the boat, and then I did another split session of 8k in the boat and then 8k on the erg, and I'll go for some weights now when I finished.
Okay, and in between it's what, food and rest? And
yeah, a lot of food, and I was actually having a bit of a lie down before chatting to you guys.
Okay, and I think the Irish rowing team are also on the same lake. Have you bumped into your fellow Queen student, former EAP Philip Doyle, who's also going to Tokyo?
I haven't seen him out rowing, but I know the coaches had a bit of a barney because obviously they follow us in the launches, so they create a lot of wash. And one of our coaches went flying up to the other end of the lake and washed down one of the crews.
Okay. So
then 5 Irish launches came flying down our end and don't be coming up here washing down our crews.
Okay. That's as close as the contact has been with you and Phil. It's unlikely in the days that are in it that there's much opportunity to mix with other athletes.
No, yeah. I think there will be. But they did say, because Phil and I obviously were at Queen's together, and it's funny because he talked about, going to the Olympics for Ireland, and I always talked about going to the Olympics for GB, and we'd often joke, could you imagine if we did it? We'll have to get a picture at the lake and all this.
And you've done it, Rebecca. I mean, it's amazing. It's I mean, I hope you feel our excitement and pride in you and Phil and what you have both done. And we'll get into a little bit of the journey in a moment. Now, I think you had left Queen's just around the time that you were starting, Ewan. So I don't know, are you aware of much of Ewan's career as a gymnast, Rebecca?
No, I just know he's went to the Commonwealth Games. I'm not gonna lie, I had a look at your Instagram to see stuff on the vault.
Yes, yeah.
Isn't that? Yeah. I mean, there's no way I could do anything like that.
Yeah,
I certainly couldn't row 18k either. So
yeah. And you notice Ewan at the Octacloy accent. She calls it vault, and we'll call it a vault.
The vault.
Yeah. Ewan, you Rebecca's had a long journey to get to what may well be the pinnacle of your career in the next few weeks, Rebecca. You had very early success. And I think you went to the Commonwealth Games while you were still at school.
Yes.
What's your memory of that breakthrough in your career?
That was a very interesting year for me. I was 18 at the time. I was sitting my A levels. So kind of from lower sixth, I knew Commonwealth was something that I really wanted to do. I know I had a shot at it as well. But I also knew university was something I wanted to do at the same time. So it was almost 2 years in the making of just, okay, I need to be on top of study and training here for the next 2 years to ensure both these happen. So I also knew there was going to be a period for hopefully 3 weeks that I was going to be out in the Gold Coast at the Commonwealth, about within 2 months of my A levels. So I was having to bring books out there to do a bit out there. But honestly, I wouldn't change anything about that year. It was amazing being able to do both those and having kind of the sport of my school was great as well, with kind of helping me for that. That was probably one of the best years of my life I've had so far.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, well I didn't start rowing until I must have been 19, so it was my first year at uni. I just started because there was a girl in the Elms Village and she just said, "Oh, you're kind of tall. Do you want to try rowing?" And I was like, "Right, well, yeah, of course. Where do I go?" I didn't even really know there was a river in Belfast. So anyway, I went down to the rowing club, and I remember getting into the boat, and we started to learn in 8. So there's already lots of people in the boat, and I just remember sitting in the boat being like, "How on earth do you do this?" Like, I could not get. There was a person at the front of the boat, so that's called the cox. Obviously, I know that now, but at the time, I was like, "Why is that person like shouting down this microphone?" Get the oar in the water, and I was like, honestly, I was like with my hands, like, "How do you do this? Like, how does anyone get this oar in?" And then there's these coaches on the bank, and the funniest thing I saw was hilarious because they had these traffic cones and they were shouting down the traffic cone as if it was like a megaphone. Now, why have you got a traffic cone? That's weird. And they'd be like, so we each have a number in the boat, so it goes from 8 to 1 basically. And they were like, 4, you're going the wrong way. And I'm sitting there thinking, going, well, 4's a bit stupid, isn't she? Like, and then I was like, 4, that's Rebecca Edwards. And that's me. I'm doing all wrong.
Rebecca, and that's 8 years ago.
Yeah, that is.
What's your memory of your first ever competitive race?
The first one was at Queen's Regatta in Castlewellan, and it's a 1,500 metre race just because of the lake, so 500 metres shorter than usual. And I remember the first race I did was in a coxed 4, and I just thought, I remember getting off the water being like, I never want to do that again. That was awful. It was so painful, like burning in my legs, in my lungs. Like, mostly my arms were sore, and everything was so quick, and I was like, how am I supposed to keep in time with everyone? And then obviously there's people racing around you, so you want to beat them, but you can't just start rowing off on your own. You have to do it together. All of these emotions, I was like, I am never, ever, ever want to do that again. And I told my coach that. And then about 2 hours later, we had to go into the boat again for the final. And then I think just after the initial shock of it, then I was like, right, well, we just row together and we keep in time and we just try our best. And then actually it was a completely the opposite experience, and I loved it and I couldn't wait to do it again the next day.
Wow. What's your memory of your first competition where you had a taste of putting yourself up against other gymnasts?
So I can't remember my exact first one because I'm sure it was a local competition in my club. I think my first recollection of a competition was Irish Championships when I was 9. And at that age, I was more interested in my Game Boy than actually competing in gymnastics. I don't remember much from it, but I remember doing my vault, which is actually my best piece now by coincidence. We had to jump onto a vault, and then rather than doing any somersaults at that age, you kind of just jumped off into a straddle jump with your legs to the side. So I remember doing that, and the thing I do remember most actually is sitting in, basically when you finish the competition, they sit all the kids down on the floor and they'll do the medals. And I actually had my Game Boy on the floor with me, and I was sitting there playing my Game Boy, wasn't really interested. And my coach came and tapped me in the back and said, "You have to go up, they said you won." And I wasn't even listening, but it turned out I had ended up winning Irish Championships at that age. So I think that was kind of just really the start of, I think it was more my parents had signaled, okay, like this could generally be something with gymnastics.
And that was it. That was the start of your own road to becoming an international.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah. Along the way, it strikes me in both sports, Ewan and Rebecca, that an essential ingredient is incredible hard work. I mean, you've described the day you've had already, Rebecca. I know Ewan's doing about 4 to 5 hours a night in Salto Gymnasium, and along with that, there's a lot of physical pain that you've got to endure. And you talked a little bit, Rebecca, about that experience in your very, very first race, the burning of your lungs, your arms, your legs. But surely, as you both have trained harder, being able to tolerate pain and discomfort is something that you have to become accustomed to. How have you managed that since, Rebecca, right up to the present day and the camp that you're in?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess, like you say, it's tolerating the pain. Unfortunately, it doesn't ever get any easier. The way, well, I mean, in most sports, sort of the faster you go, the more lactic acid you produce. You just kind of get used to it. But I remember, in my sort of first few years at Queen's, we used to talk about like welcoming the pain and being comfortable in that zone, because, well, comfortable is a different word, but when you're in the sort of red line zone, you're doing it right. So like at the start, whenever I race now, or when I do an erg test or anything, like I know that that's going to hit me maybe 45 seconds in, and I just welcome it now, because I know I can tolerate it. I know that I can handle it. And the more you sort of sit in that zone, then the more the zone goes up, and you can just keep tolerating more. Very much.
Well, where does courage come in dealing with the sort of experiences Rebecca is describing, and how it applies in your own sport? I mean, I had a chance to watch you train in your gym, and I mean, frankly, some of those exercises terrify me. I mean, you see Ewan doing vaults where he's, I don't know, you're 15, 16 feet in the air, doing axles and somersaults. I mean, I find it incredible to watch. So
Thank you.
Where does courage come in all of this, do you think, in sport?
I think it's pretty massive, I suppose in any sport. To go out and compete in any stage takes courage. I know specifically in gymnastics, because a lot of the stuff we do is, high adrenaline. It's you genuinely, if things go wrong, serious injury can occur. So I think it is just about, a big part of it is kind of believing in your training and the trust you've done. So we would never do anything that we would never just launch into anything that's above our capabilities. It would always be, there would always be steps up towards doing one of those big skills. So you'd have drills you would do. And one of the reasons we need to start so early is because there is such a fundamental kind of basis of gymnastics that needs to be achieved in order to allow you to do those skills safely. So again, it is just relying on kind of knowing that you've done that training, knowing that, okay, you're capable of doing this. And I think just committing as well. I think things, I know in gymnastics are a lot safer when you fully commit. If you're half-hearted going into it, it's going to be more dangerous. So it is just trusting in yourself, really.
Okay. Let me put this to both of you. Rebecca, you first. How did you cope with the last year? How did you find the resource in yourself and in your environment to keep going?
Well, I'll say it for myself. I think that I've coped with the last year really well, actually. It doesn't mean it was easy, but I knew that everything was I knew that I was so close, and I knew that everything could change at any moment. Because, people, then the Olympics were cancelled. You didn't know if somebody else was going to get COVID. There was no plans at all. So I just decided that I would do one day at a time. And in fact, for probably at least the first 2 months, it was almost just one session at a time. And the way I saw it was, I don't need to ask any questions about what's going to happen in the future, or is there even going to be an Olympics? That's not my business. The only thing that's my business is me doing this session to the best of my ability. So I really, really narrowed it down. And, obviously, I'm part of a team now, but up until selection, we all compete against each other. And in my head, every time I took a stroke on the erg or the row machine, I knew that there's somebody else not taking strokes. So everything that I did was very, very purposeful to keep me in the moment. But I also knew that it would pay off down the line because of the day in, day out hard work. It always pays off somewhere, sometimes not in the places you'd expect. But that was what kept me good in the lockdown, and probably actually good for my own sort of well-being as well. I didn't have too much anxiety or anything about the pandemic.
Okay.
Luckily, because I just really stayed in the moment. So yeah.
Well, that's a lot of Rebecca. That's a lot of moments over many days and weeks and months. So just let's see if I got this straight. You had this row machine and you were in your own accommodation training. Yeah.
So
wow.
Just living in my parents' house at home.
Okay.
And I just had the rowing machine in the shed with the tractors. And yeah, I just
off you went.
Made it work.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to be joking that, I'd be sitting with the tractors being like, these are the machines, I'm making myself into a machine, wow. All these things.
Yeah. That's a great metaphor. Give us a sense of how many hours a day on average did that involve through all of that time?
Well, I did stick to mostly the 3 sessions a day. Occasionally it was just 2. I actually counted up the miles just as a bit of motivation for myself, and it was over 100,000 kilometres.
Wow.
Since the start of the pandemic, between March and July, I think it was.
100,000 kilometres in your parents' shed beside the tractors. Amazing. Now, I know Ewan, you were obviously out of the gym, which is a specialised resource. How on earth did you keep training as a gymnast in your house?
Yeah, being out of the gym for that long was really tough because, everything is, as you said, so specialised. I think when we kind of found out the lockdown was coming, we were kind of just taking whatever we could from the gym that we could fit in our house. So I got a small set of parallel bars. I actually had a pommel horse up in my garage, and then just as many weights as I could get, really. And it was just similar to yourself, just following a routine every single day as close to normal training. So I was doing roughly about 3 hours a day in the house, and that would just consist of stretching. It was a lot of strength and conditioning at that time. I was just coming off the back of a torn rotator cuff, so in some ways it wasn't the worst. It gave me time to kind of start to get my body physically fit again. One of the Queen's Gym guy we work at the gym, Mike McGurn, was really, really useful. I kind of helped setting programs and helping us get back to that. But it was really just, as you said, it gave you a sense of purpose, and helped you keep in the right mindset during lockdown. I was completely fine with lockdown because I was still training and still doing gymnastics. And in some ways I needed it, because it was fun. I loved doing it. That was kind of my highlight of the day during lockdown. So just kind of finding ways to work around it as best as possible. And
the studies were running parallel to that from home as well, Ewan?
Yes, yeah, we were all online. So it was just, in some ways it was nice, you weren't having to go in university every day. It was just, you sat down at your desk, you did your lectures, and then the gym was outside my bedroom rather than 3 minutes down the road.
So you had your bed just out in the hallway, and Rebecca's going to the shed. Yeah. Rebecca, one of the things that we tried to do at Queen's all year was keep a sense of the elite athlete sporting community together. Mm-hmm. We did a fair few Zoom meetings and seminars as a way of trying to keep connection going. And you're in a boat with 7 other women, so that sense of connection must be incredibly important at the top end of your sport. How do you work on teamship and camaraderie in a camp?
It's hugely important for an 8. Like we sort of say, like, in an 8 you can be greater than the sum of your parts if you work together well, but if you don't work together well, you can almost be less than the sum of your parts, because in a way you're sort of fighting each other. So it's very, very important. We kind of do like a personality test, which we did at the start of the project, because obviously everyone's different, so you kind of get a sense of what works for some people, what doesn't work for others, like how people react on race day, how people react to winning and losing. All those things are quite important. We have like social evenings on camp, so I think we're having board games tomorrow. We had an ice cream night a couple of nights ago, and then we just have like quite regular meetings about like how we're feeling and what do we want to work on in the boat and things like that. So it's always, it doesn't always have to be organized stuff, but we're always working together, like always.
And while you're in camp, are you sharing a room with someone? I've got the sense it could be, I wouldn't say claustrophobic, but it's very intense in a social and sporting sense. What do you do to lose yourself, get some privacy?
It can be intense. We are sharing rooms. Luckily, I'm sharing with my little girl in the boat with me, but I've known her for sort of 4 or 5 years, so it's pretty easy we just chill. Like, there's no real need for niceties or small talk or any of that. But yeah, sometimes you just have to, go for a walk, or like yesterday evening, I was so tired from training and I just couldn't be bothered chatting to people. And we all sit together at dinner in our sort of bubble in the women's 8. It's a COVID bubble, obviously. And I just could not be bothered like chatting about, I don't know, whatever people were talking about. And I was like, look, everyone, I'm not being rude, but I can't be bothered talking. I'm going to bed. And you just, that sort of honesty and openness is, we just accept each other for that, or some people, whenever they get tired, they get a bit emotional and things like that. So, we just accept each other at face value and ask the question, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? And if the answer is yes, then you can help. And if not, you say, okay, well, rest well, let me know. I'm always at the end of the phone or down the corridor or whatever. So that sort of openness.
And you're going to be living together for weeks to come. The games start, I think, on July 23rd.
Yeah.
And your first race is 25th of July.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we'll be living together, I think, a total of 7 weeks maybe. So we'll know each other real well.
Yeah. It's a special sort of boarding school. I know you've been to the World University Games.
Yeah.
That was your pathway out of Queen's into, I think, international rowing, and you got a double gold in 2018 in Shanghai. Yeah. You've also been to obviously the Commonwealth Games, multi-sport event.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, have you any tips or advice for Rebecca based on your experience of what do you do when you're away for so long, and obviously particularly I think Rebecca this year with limited opportunities to roam around. What advice would you have for Rebecca for dealing with her downtime?
Yeah, it's going to be strange giving advice to an Olympian. But if I'm honest, in the village there was so much stuff to do. I think obviously just exploring it itself, we got a good few days out of. Obviously, you're there for training and there is a lot of it's rest time, but even just walking around, I know they had lots of just attractions and stuff set up. I know because it was out in Australia, some days they were bringing things like koalas and snakes into the village. So I'm sure the Olympics being in Tokyo, there'll be similar things like that with bringing things in with Japanese culture. But even I found what was really nice was I was in a room with another gymnast, and then we were actually in the room with two other triathletes. So we spent a lot of time getting to know them, which was really nice. And then even just getting to speak to other athletes on the team. So there's a few people I'd heard of throughout the years just through social media, and actually getting to speak to them and meet them in person was really, really nice as well. So I certainly never found boredom a real issue.
Okay.
The village was great for that.
Yeah, I suppose what I was thinking about you, and I don't know, Rebecca, if you've had a briefing on this yet, but my sense is that you referred to this bubble, that there'll be a lot of emphasis placed on staying within your camp and within your unit.
Yeah.
Have you been given much information about what it will be like over there when you get there?
At the moment, no, but I think we're sort of getting information packs trickling through as the days go by. I think they don't want to give us everything in one big go, so it would be a bit overwhelming, I suppose. But I do know that Team GB are sort of doing things very differently to what they would have done in past Olympiads. I've heard that they're a very creative bunch, so I think it'd be quite fun.
Yeah.
And I won't know any different. I've never been to the Olympics, so whatever it is, it'll be special for me. So.
Yes, of course. How's your Japanese?
Not great, but I do know a few words.
Oh, do you? Well, tell us what words do you know, first of all?
Well, I know how you say hello. I think konnichiwa, or is that Chinese? No, I think that's Japanese.
Konnichiwa. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then I know how you say thank you. Say arigato.
Okay. Cool. And that's it. Well, Rebecca, we happen to have a Japanese speaker in the room. Ewan, apart from being an international gymnast and a dental student, likes to relax by learning Japanese. So, I mean, it just shows you that since you left, the caliber of person I have to work with is really. I know it's
really
gone down.
You've just recruited some more weirdos, I think.
How did you get into Japanese?
Generally, one of the big things is gymnastics. Japan would be, in my opinion, the best gymnastics nation in the world. Just the amount of guys they have out there performing at the top level is just incredible. So it was more just wanting to learn more about gymnastics. I thought the characters were pretty cool as well. So initially, I just started trying to learn the characters at first, and then as I got more and more into it, it just kind of snowballed into me really enjoying it. And then just became a bit of a hobby, as you said, doing it.
Rebecca, you were a French and Spanish student at Queen's, and it meant you described how you got into rowing. You had that awkward start. You were a novice. You progressed then over the next 2 years. People started to notice your talent. You got invited into the GB system for some trials, and then you went away for a year to France. And of all the places to go, you go to the Pyrenees, to Tarbes, I think. Hardly the centre of French rowing.
No.
And then you entered the EAP scheme the following year. Tell us about that year, because I think it resonates a little bit with you in the shed in Knocknacloy in the past winter.
That year was the hardest year of my life. But that year made me the athlete that I am, to be quite honest. I yeah, I had just an erg in the flat in France, and there was no rivers anywhere near. There was a river 2 hours away, so I would get the train at the weekends and do a row, and then get the train 2 hours back. But during the week, it was just me. Didn't have a coach. I did have a training program, obviously, but nobody sort of right there helping me out or anything. Didn't have any excuses, because if you don't have other people, you can't make any excuses, because you can't lie to yourself. And if things didn't go well, it was all down to me. So yeah, I'd say it was probably the toughest, but the most important year for me. And it's funny because I as soon as lockdown was called, I knew that I knew my year in France would stand me in good stead, because I knew what a year off the erg could do. And so that's why, I guess that's probably why I had a bit of faith in myself as well during the whole season of lockdown, basically.
What a fantastic definition of mental toughness. Rebecca, you then came back to Queen's and you went into the EAP programme. Memories of that programme in your last year?
Yeah, it's a great programme. I probably can't thank Queen's Sport enough, really, for obviously the financial support was incredible, because it meant that I could train and do my uni work and not need to worry about getting a job or anything like that. So that was incredible. And also it taught me so much about being more than just an athlete in a boat. There's a lot of things that encompass a successful athlete, and I had people like yourself, Mike McGurn, looking after me weights wise and facilities out of the dub. Even Patrina was the physiotherapist, and also just like Carl and Liz sort of checking in, making sure I was doing well, and all of those things outside of the boat then helped me to be even better in the boat. So that really started opening my eyes to sort of what people call you've got the actual sport, and then sort of the emotional side of it, the physical side of it, and the rest side of it, or recovery. So that really gave me opened the door to a new way of working.
Well, Rebecca, thank you for those kind words. Listen, the whole world may not be able to go to Tokyo this summer to watch the games, but the whole world will be watching you and your colleagues and all your fellow competitors. And we are so excited that you're going. We've avoided asking the question about what you're going to do, but I think it's pretty evident from how you come across that you're focused on a final and you're focused on podium. And we wish you all the best. We're very proud of you, and we look forward to seeing you back in Belfast when it's all over. So on behalf of everybody at Queen's, I hope that you have a very, very successful camp and a great build-up, and of course, ultimately, a fantastic outcome on the water once you get to Tokyo. So Rebecca, we know you're going off to the gym now. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you back home later in the year. So thank you very much, Rebecca Edwards.
Thank you so much for having me.
So that's Rebecca Edwards, former Queen's rower, former EAP at Queen's, Great British rower, and soon to be Olympian. And who knows what will happen in the first week of July over on the water in Tokyo. Perhaps we'll see Rebecca coming back with a medal around her neck. Ewan, what did you make of Rebecca? Because I know you haven't had a chance to meet her before in person. So, what did you make of that interview?
That was amazing speaking to Rebecca. I think getting the chance to speak to someone who has been in my position that I'm in the minute as a Queen's athlete, as someone from Northern Ireland that's made it through and is actually going to the Olympics, as Rebecca said earlier, it never feels real until it happens. Gives me a lot of confidence and actually a lot of pride to be a Queen's athlete, to know that coming through this scheme can propel people to that level. So yeah, it's a big motivator for me to think, okay, well, if someone else can do it, there's no reason why I can't either.
Yeah, you've had when you look back over the fullness of the last year, you referred to your rotator cuff injury. It's been a tough year for you as an athlete with injuries.
Yeah, it has. As I said, about 2 years ago there, I had that rotator cuff tear, which put me out of the gym for a long, long time, nearly 11 months, resulted in a surgery. So that wasn't great. And then, unfortunately, just as I was starting to come back, COVID hit, and that was another time out of the gym. So just that kind of added up to a lot of time out of the gym, and it just wasn't great for my body. And although, as we talked about earlier, I was doing my best to kind of stay fit during lockdown, there's only so much you can do at home without a gym because it is so specialised. So when I've come back, I've struggled with a few issues just with my knee and actually my other shoulder. Yeah, it has been tough, but I've never ever been knocked down by them completely, because I always know that injuries can get better, especially with the sport that kind of Queen's give us through strength and conditioning and physio. That there always is a way to bounce back, and it's always a motivator for me to kind of know that I can come back from this.
So, Ewan, we're going to have a look at a clip now of you at the British Championships from a couple of years back, and this is you on a vault. So let's have a look at the clip first. Just talk us through what the vault was there, and explain to someone who knows nothing about gymnastics other than seeing it on TV every once in a while.
Sure. So that vault was called Yurchenko 2.5. So all the names kind of are strange foreign names. But what it involved me doing was a round off onto the board, a backflip onto the vault. I would then push off and do a straight somersault with 2.5 twists. So that was in 2017 British Masters. It was my second Masters final, but I was competing up a year, so I was still a junior at the time. And it was a difficult vault. You know, it was tough enough, but it wasn't. There were some other guys there that were GB, top of the GB squad, and I wouldn't have been on the same level as them. But my kind of goal going out there was just to hit both my vaults as cleanly as possible, and I'd be very happy with that. And actually, thankfully, that's what I did. Had two very good vaults, and it worked out that they were good enough to actually end up winning that British Championships. So that was probably my first major title that I'd taken. Completely unexpected, because my goal wasn't to go out there and win it. It was to go into the best form as I could. But I suppose in some ways, that's always kind of the goal. You know, medal or not, you can just do the best you can, really. So it was kind of a highlight to me that showed the power of doing that, really.
So let me see if I've got this right. An Yurchenko.
Yurchenko. Yeah, they're all named after the first person that ever did it.
Okay.
So,
you're working on a new vault now. Is it a secret? Are you able to tell us anything about it?
So it was a vault that I was training kind of just when we get back in from lockdown. The way it works in gymnastics is the first person to ever do a new skill, if they land it successfully at a competition, they'll get their name in the code. So if I was ever to do it, if it was ever to be successful, it would be called McAteer. So a lot of things can change. As cool as that would be, I'm going to do the vault that's going to be the best vault for me to do at that time. So I'll have to see how things goes, but it is in the works.
Okay, so basically it's a secret, but it'll be spectacular if it comes off.
Hopefully.
Now, I've watched you train. It strikes me that you're a power athlete, a bit like our track cyclist Harvey Barnes. Power is an incredible part of your sport. And I want to have a look at another clip now, because I know that in the Queen's Gym there's a little bit of a unofficial competition that goes on around who's got the biggest box jump among the elite athletes. So for everybody watching, I want you to have a look at Ewan doing this box jump just a week or so ago.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so let's have a look at this. No, that's impressive. First of all, how high was that box jump?
I think it was 1.32 meters.
Okay, 1.32 meters.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm visualising that. I need a ladder for that. Do you mind me asking, how tall are you?
I'm 1.67 meters.
Wow. So your box jump is closing in on your actual body height.
It's getting there, yeah.
Yeah. You ever think of high jump in athletics?
I think I'd still be too small. That's the reason I'm in gymnastics. It's the only one I can get away with being this height in.
Listen, what's the rest of the year got for you now that we're going back into competition and hopefully you're on the mend with your shoulder? What have we got to look forward to when we think about you in competition this year?
Well, over the summer, it's pretty quiet. There isn't really much, so it gives me a bit of training time, which is good. The next big one for me will be World Championships in October. That will be actually in Japan. That'll be in Kitakyushu. It'll be a challenge qualifying for that. I'll have to show a score that's top 8 in the world. It's something I believe is achievable. It will be tough, but it's definitely my next biggest focus. And then after that, Commonwealth qualification period will start. So it was meant to start last year, but due to COVID, that didn't happen. So kind of just between January to March or April, I'll be doing kind of competitions that I can achieve scores at for Commonwealth Games. And that'll be my biggest focus at the start of 2022, really.
Okay, and Commonwealth Games are next summer in Birmingham?
Yes, they're in Birmingham.
Okay, so we could have a few Queen's athletes heading to Birmingham next year. Harvey Barnes is going to be having a go at track cycling qualification. Hopefully you'll be there. We really look forward to seeing how the winter goes, Ewan, but just like Rebecca, we know you've got a fantastic work ethic, and good luck first of all with the training over the summer, and we will await your results next autumn with relish.
Yes.
So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much indeed, Ewan.
Thank you.
So thank you to our two guests today, to Rebecca Edwards over in Northern Italy and to Ewan McAteer here in the studio. We look forward now to our second programme with Peter Thompson, the Queen's soccer manager, and special guest Mary Phillip, former international footballer and captain of England women's soccer team.